What's up, y'all? How you doing? Welcome back, and holy crap, do we have a lot to talk about. In the last couple of weeks, the Supreme Court has wonderfully and justly gifted us with many 2A victories in the courts, including one of the most important ones, which was just handed down a couple of days ago, and it's my personal favorite, even more so than the pistol brace ban that I actually launched my channel off of. This was the end of Chevron deference. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, let us all bow our heads in a moment of silence for the Chevron deference ruling, which allowed federal agencies, completely unregulated and completely separated from congressional authority, to just decide laws on a whim. Okay, so for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you already know exactly how important this is. But before I really get into it, here's a word from our sponsor. Wait, you thought there was an actual sponsor spot? You really thought there was a sponsor? Yeah, we don't have that kind of money. Although if anyone's in... And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. So, as I said before, for those of you who already know what Chevron deference is, you already know what a momentous decision this is. But for those of you who are not well informed on what Chevron deference actually was, well, allow me to educate you for just a moment. Chevron deference refers to a case from 1984 in which the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the EPA over the Chevron Energy Company. Basically, what this ruling did was it allowed federal agencies, such as our old friends at the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Infringement, to interpret the law as they see fit, according to their own wants and wishes, and then enforce said law, or actually make said law, essentially, as they see fit in deference to federal and state courts. In other words, federal agencies like the ATF could just create law out of whole cloth, and the courts couldn't do a damn thing about it because, according to the Supreme Court, that was okay. They had to defer to federal agencies such as the EPA, the ATF, the FBI, the CIA, any other three-letter demonic agency you can think of, to tell the courts what the law is and how the law should actually be enacted and enforced. Now, for a long time, this went largely unnoticed by the American people. But a couple of years ago, we all got to have a taste of the true impact of Chevron deference when the ATF got a little too big for its britches and, under the direction of our wonderful president at the moment, decided that pistol braces, which had been legal for over a decade at this point, now created short-barreled rifles and, if you ask certain people, machine guns. But then again, what isn't a machine gun to the ATF these days? And so, therefore, could be banned. One little problem with that. Bans are a federal, nationwide occurrence. They require the assistance, and actually they require the knowledge and the consent of Congress, the elected representatives of the American people, in order to actually create and enforce a ban of anything. It does not matter what that is. If you want to ban anything nationwide, you want to ban a certain widget, you cannot just wake up one morning and say, well, you know what? I don't like widgets. They're banned now. No, that is not how that works. You must go through Congress, you must go through the Senate, you must go through the entire set of circumstances which is required by the United States Constitution in order to pass a ban which is in fact a law. Well, with Chevron deference, you didn't have to do that. And the ATF pounced on that thing like a you-know-what. So, through the precedent of Chevron deference, they were able to enforce and enact not only the pistol brace ban, but also the bump stock ban, their attacks on force reset triggers. Most recently, they put a man in prison for selling a little metal cutout that kinda, sorta, maybe, if you squinted a little, sort of looked like a full auto sear for an AR-15, even though the ATF's top gunsmiths had to actually completely recreate this and bring in heavy machinery to make said sear out of said metal card. Basically, they had to create it themselves, and in so doing, create an illegal machine gun, in order to prove that you could create an illegal machine gun with a stamped piece of metal, which actually wouldn't work because I believe a couple of hundred people actually tried to do it with said metal card and couldn't do it. You see the problem here. Well, with the death of Chevron deference, that means that everything that the ATF, and by extension all these other three-letter agencies, have been doing for the past 40 years, effectively creating laws out of whole cloth, as I said, is over. In fact, since this has been overturned, things like the pistol brace ban, things like the bump stock ban, things like many other agencies have done, which are way too long to mention here, and in fact including things like, a certain mandate that we all fought against about, 4 odd years ago, which I can't actually safely mention on YouTube, otherwise my channel will very quickly go away. Things like that, which were done without the knowledge and without the consent of Congress, can no longer be done. This is an amazing victory for the American people, guys. Just so amazing. I am jumping out of my boots with happiness. I was super excited whenever the pistol brace rule got struck down. I was even more excited when the bump stock ban got struck down, because those are both woefully unconstitutional and do absolutely nothing to end the epidemic of gun violence, which is mainly centered in blue run cities, which have some of the heaviest gun restrictions in the country. But I digress on that. I was overjoyed, to say the least. Now, this, coupled with many of the other rulings we're going to cover in this little series of videos, as I said, is a momentous victory for the two-way community and for Americans at large. It has been far too long that our nation has allowed unelected, unregulated, unsupervised, basically unbridled three-letter agencies to just create laws, as I love to say, out of whole cloth, and then enforce them on the entire country on the whims and wishes of a few executives, which are appointed to their positions by the executive branch, again, not elected and not regulated by the American people. Now, of course, anyone who is a student of history knows that for the past 30 or 40 years, they have taken this power to the extreme. I could think of a couple incidents back in the very early 1990s, right around the 1991 to 1993 era, when a couple of federal agencies got very too big for their britches, and something like 78 to 80 people lost their lives over it needlessly. We were headed for something similar to that very soon in this country, because under the direction of the current administration, agencies like the ATF and the FBI have been arbitrarily targeting certain sects of American culture, specifically the gun community, and they have been coming at us hard and heavy under the protection of Chevron deference. Because since the federal courts and the state courts couldn't get involved, because after all, the Supreme Court had given them this authority, Congress, as slow as they are, I mean, the phrase "it takes an act of Congress" is a thing for a reason, they could not interfere and they could not stop these agencies from doing this because they had the protection of Chevron deference. They were effectively allowed to make laws as they saw fit and enforce those arbitrary laws as they saw fit. Now that the Supreme Court has ruled against them, this no longer exists. By extension, those decisions no longer exist. And the enforcement mechanisms for federal and, more importantly, state courts does exist. So things like the bump stock ban, the pistol brace ban, magazine limits, so-called assault weapon bans, which have been enacted unconstitutionally and arbitrarily in many places by local agencies or these federal agencies, no longer exist. Pushback is now open. We are now allowed to fight back where we could not before. And guys, we are fighting tooth, claw, and nail to take back the rights that they have taken from us for far too long. This was a major victory in the war to win back our liberties. Guys, I hope this has helped you stay a little bit more informed. I know I went off on a couple of tangents, and of course there are guys out there that are far more knowledgeable about this than me. I am just a dumb redneck from the Ozarks with too many guns. But I like to think that I'm doing what I can, and my small part, to keep you guys informed on the progress that we are making to push back the machine that is the overarching federal government, which, as I said, has done far too much for far too long to take far too many liberties from us. So guys, do me a favor out there. Celebrate American Pride Month, celebrate Freedom Month, stay armed, stay informed, and stay frosty, my friends.